What is going on, Panther Lair? We are back talking about the Pittsburgh Panthers' victory over the Virginia Tech Hokies this past Saturday on the road. Now, if you've been following me this season, you know I talk a lot about zoom action, and the reason that is because Pitt runs zoom action every single game they play. The opposing team they're going up against pretty much runs it every single game. So there's a lot of video available to take a look at this after every breakdown. So wanted to dive into it here because, you know, the Panthers did some good things. They did some not good things. So we're going to start with some of the not good things, talk about why those didn't work well. And we're going to talk about the good things and why those worked well, particularly at the end of the game. So let us dive into two sequences of the bad. And so this is going to be a pretty typical action here that the Hokies run. They just toss the ball into the elbow here. This player takes a dribble out here, and then they start going in this direction, the zoom action. Now, one of the things that Pitt really struggled with in this game, particularly the guards, is they got caught on screens a lot, and because of that, it forced like the screeners defender, that being like Guillermo Diaz-Graham or Cam Corrin, to help on the ball handler a whole lot longer, and so that was just not a great thing in general. So you're going to see some examples of that baked into this zoom breakdown here. So they get into the zoom alignment, and you see Leggett is going to get caught on this screen, and he's going to have a hard time recovering, and because of that, Corrin is going to have to step out here to essentially take on the ball handler, and that is going to put two players on the ball and no one now onto the most athletic guy on the floor, that being Toby Lual. And now he is going up against Jalen Lowe, and that is a mismatch, and there is a dunk. So here we are going to see an example of how zoom is intended to work for the offense. And again, if you get caught on these screens and you are trailing significantly, that's exactly what the offense wants. Also, the ball handler coming off receiving this DHO is going to be able to attack into like a double gap here. So, I mean, there's just all kinds of good things happening anytime the defender is trailing this much for the offense. And you'll see, you know, Leggett had to take a wide route. He doesn't get any part of this ball. Thankfully, he doesn't foul, and the result is a three-pointer. So now let's take a look at some good sequences here. We'll take a look at three of those, and we'll talk about why those worked out. Now, you may remember this because I just did a breakdown on this in terms of how Mississippi State was disrupting what Pitt wanted to do here. And so it's kind of a similar thing where they're going to switch. So Leggett's going to actually jet out here and not allow this to be used. Because of that, that is going to force a reset. So they switch here, and Leggett says, hey, I'm not going to let you use this DHO cleanly, and they're going to have to reset this. And as they look to do that, Zach Austin, who is a ball hawk and likely the best overall defender on the Panthers, gets a transition dunk. So here we go. You saw that elbow entry. They're going to run the DHO. Now this time, Leggett gets caught up a little bit, but they actually switch Leggett's guy because of this and Corrin's guy. And so that's interesting. So Corrin is going to switch onto the player receiving the DHO up top. And the way that the movement works within these two players, Leggett ends up being on the wall. So Guillermo Diaz-Graham stays on his guy. And you'll see this works here because there is no advantage gained at this point. Like the Virginia Tech guards aren't like overly athletic and aggressive off the bounce. So this does not work out for Virginia Tech the way they intend. Of course, there is a mismatch down here, but the Hokies were never fully able to take advantage of that. Good job fronting the post there by Leggett. I think this could potentially have been a layup here if he goes up with the left hand. I'm not sure if that's like in his bag to do, but because he stops, then goes back to his right hand, this just allows for an easy block. And a good defensive play there by Guillermo Diaz-Graham. Again, we see the elbow entry. They're going to go into the zoom action. Now, this one is a little bit more traditional in terms of where Pitt is going to switch players. So we see the flash. Now we are switching on the backside here because of this. And so the switches happen. Again, this is not really the matchup you want down here, but because they switched on here, there's no advantage gained. They're forced to reset, and now you have this player going one-on-one dancing on the perimeter, needing a three-pointer against arguably the best perimeter defender with length on the team, and that did not work out. So, again, I think the big thing here is, and what the Bulldogs were effective at, is not allowing zoom action to work as it's intended. Anytime that Pitt fell into the trap of doing that and just kind of having, in these examples, Leggett just trail the player trying to get the DHO, bad things happen. Anytime they denied the use of the DHO or they switched in some fashion, whether that be intentional or unintentional, good things happened. And I think you're starting to see that throughout all of these games is that teams are adjusting to this, and depending on what they throw out and how many good athletes they have and how good they are in communication, it can really be a disruptive thing. So Pitt went to this here late in the game. I don't think that it was intentional that they just decided to do this late. This may have been a huddle conversation, because why would you wait this long when Virginia Tech was scoring a lot of points by just running it straight up defensively? I don't know, but this did work out for them. It's one of the reasons they started getting stops at the end of the game, ultimately allowed them to win.